This is the Spa Retailer Podcast, where we talk retail, business, and all things related to the hot tub industry. I'm your host, Megan Kendrick, owner of Spa Retailer Magazine. Today on the Spa Retailer Podcast, I have Larry Ovalle, VP of Innovation and Technology from Jacuzzi Products, and Erica Moir, Senior VP of Design, Engineering, and Product Marketing at Jacuzzi. Thanks for coming on the podcast today, guys. So I'm really excited to have you guys on. We are here to talk about the new Jacuzzi True Water System, which I know like the broad marketing headlines of this product, but I don't know very much about what it actually is and how it does it. So I'm really excited to have you guys on today to learn more about that. But before we get started, so I was just chatting with both of you a little bit about my time in the industry and yours and all these random connections that we have. How long have you guys been at Jacuzzi at this point?
I'll go first. So I've been here, it's going on 15 years
Okay.
at Jacuzzi. So in different roles along the way, from starting in our bath division to moving over to our spa division. And that's where I've been for the bulk of the time here.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Erica?
Well, August is my 25th anniversary here, which is
Right.
very shocking. But like Larry, I think the nice part of here is that we can move to different divisions. And I've had that opportunity to be in different roles and then different divisions, which gives you new challenges. So I think that's what really the opportunities Larry and I have had have really kept us here and allowed us to be creative, which has been great.
I know the high level marketing of the Jacuzzi True Water System. What would you say it is in a nutshell then? And then we can dig in more.
So I think true water technology for us is really the next evolution of water care for our products in the Jacuzzi brand. For hot tubs, one of the biggest pain points for customers is taking care of their water and making sure it's always clean and clear for when they want to use their hot tub. And chemicals are a big part of maintaining hot tubs, and a lot of people have skin irritations from the chemicals or other kind of adverse conditions that they makes them not want to use their product as much if they have to continuously use that type of product to keep their water clean. Not to mention the time it takes away from your life and just enjoying the product. So really, where True was conceived was around the idea of how do we make a water care system that both provides clean water with less effort or almost no effort, but also reduces the amount of chemicals that a customer has to use to essentially less than what they have in drinking water. So really, that was where we started the journey for the development of True, was how can we find a system that delivers clean, clear water with the fewest steps for a customer so that they can always enjoy their product when they're ready to use it. And then also everyone in their family can enjoy it, whether or not you have sensitive skin or whatever the conditions may be. So that was really where we started.
Yeah. Yeah, that is whenever I have friends who are buying a hot tub, what I always tell them is spend the extra money on whatever upgraded water care system that hot tub brand has, because that's the thing that's going to give you the most value and give you the most enjoyment out of your hot tub. Forget about waterfalls and all the other stuff. That's great. But if you only have X amount of dollars to spend it on the water care.
Yeah. It's a unique product because water stays in the product for months if done right. In today's kind of society, with also conservation being a topic, being able to use your water as long as you can, but still have it enjoyable throughout that time. That's
Yeah.
where we started on.
Yeah. Larry, you definitely hit like some of the hot like button issues, right? As far as water care. But also a lot of what you said sounds like impossible with what we're dealing with right now for caring for hot tub water. How do you guys accomplish this, and what's the end result of using the True Water system?
I think you're right. We looked at what is in the industry and then decided we needed to go outside, right? Where is water technology outside of our space? And that's where Larry and I usually start with a lot of our thoughts and our research. And so that's what we did. It was really looking outside of what's happening in our business and our industry and finding where that technology leadership is and start those investigations, actually building prototypes, trying to get one work and actually prove to ourselves, was this road of many years actually worth it, right? To actually find something that we could adapt and take and bring into our industry as something really unique. And that's what it's been. Three years of development that we've spent on this, and lots of outside testing to achieve what we've got today to bring to the consumer.
Was there a particular industry where you found a solution that you could use in hot tubs, or was it a kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different things?
I think it was the latter. When looking around, because of the safety issue with water and using it, there's many different applications, around the world that have the same need of water treatment. Everything from, industrial scale wastewater treatment down to fish farming is another application, oil and gas, surface water at whether it's golf courses or other places around the world. There's a need to keep water clean, whether it needs to be clean to deliver the oxygen to the fish to grow on a farm or in a greenhouse environment to provide the nutrients and the roots for the plants. So how do we make sure that clean water is getting to where it needs to go the quickest way possible? So when we looked around, we found an interesting technology based on nanobubbles. A nanobubble is something that has been in nature for a long time, whether or not it's in waterfalls or waves. They're invisible to the human eye. They're 2,500 times smaller than a grain of salt, to give a little context for the size of them. And so it wasn't until in the 90s when, call it, technology caught up to nature, to be able to find these in water and then understand better what they do in terms of the special properties that due to their unique size and stability, really is what it comes down to. When we explored the idea of the nanobubbles, then we also thought about, okay, how could it apply to our industry, specifically for hot tubs? We really had to go and look at things that fit in a shipping container in terms of these devices that treat water and get it to the size where it would fit in a hot tub and be easy for a customer. And so a lot of the engineering effort went into how do you do that? How do you package it with the same performance at a scale that is much smaller than it's typically deployed at? And so that's where we started. We saw the benefit in other applications and industries, like Erica mentioned when we were looking, and then said, okay, how can we apply this to hot tubs? And just started product development, just figured out, okay, what's our benchmark, what's our baseline, what are we going to compare the performance against, and then starting to see if it actually works and we can get one to reliably treat water in the way it does on these different applications in our application.
So what does it look like in a hot tub? What does it do, and how does the water turn out in the end?
The description we've been getting from a lot of people is the water is sparkly and that they've never seen water like this in their hot tubs. So that to us really made us realize that we've got it. Like, it's not just the feeling, it's the visual, it's the smell. Like, you don't, because there's a lot of open up a hot tub and the first thing you have is the hot tub smell, and we don't have that. So all of these things that we know are the downside often of having to maintain the water with chemicals that we could eliminate, that. And that's what I think I think the sparkly water has been the most amazing comments that we've had from people. And to get out and not feel like you've got anything residual on you from the chemical water management that you've been using. It's been outstanding with the products we have in the field right now.
So do you not need chemicals at all with this? Can you be chemical free if you use True Water?
Yeah, so we're actually in how we talk about it with consumers is we're 99.9999% chlorine free for traditional chemicals that you need for your hot tub to maintain it. So far less than drinking water. But you always need a little bit in there just to account
Sure.
for 6 or 7 people getting in the hot tub at once and then jumping out. And so we have less chlorine than drinking water that we can maintain the water and get that kind of clear sparkle that Erica mentioned for our systems, much less than any other system on the market.
It's a little hard for me to wrap my head around that because that's just so far outside of what we've all been taught about how you care for a hot tub and keep it safe. So you might have to give me a little science to help me understand, like, how does this actually keep the water clean? Because It's been pounded into our head for so long that you have to have chlorine or bromine to do that.
Yeah, it really starts with kind of some of the unique properties of nanobubbles. One of the unique properties is the transfer efficiency of gas to water. We're able to inject oxygen into nanobubbles that is used in the trillions, is how much we saturate the water with these nanobubbles. And because of their size, they're stable in the sense that they don't get injected into the water and then naturally rise and pop and release the gas inside of them. They stay suspended in water until they need to go attack something that is in the water. And so, because we can saturate and hyperaerate the water with this gas transfer efficiency, we're able to really create a residual of something other than chlorine. Typically, you need the chlorine in the water because of that residual. And, it's typically quantified in parts per million, 3 to 5 parts per million. People say maybe if you have some type of system like a UV system, it might be 1 to 3 parts per million. And you can even find systems in the market that claim they're natural, but a salt system, for example, just generates chlorine, and a lot of chlorine that is really unmanaged. And so, because of the way we can efficiently transfer gas into water and then keep that gas suspended in the water so that it is used when needed, kind of on demand, we're able to keep a very low residual of chlorine in combination with that kind of other treatment, the nanobubble treatment that we have, to really be able to take on any situation in the hot tub water in terms of use.
Just to clarify, it's because when Larry describes that there's all these bubbles, there are all these bubbles in there, but unlike micro bubble, right? So we've got micro bubble, which I think the industry knows a lot
Yes.
about. You
Yeah,
get
no,
that
I'm glad you brought
milky
that up
effect.
because I was gonna
Yes.
ask, like, this is not the same thing as that. Okay.
No, because they're smaller, they're nano bubbles, you cannot see them. So
Okay.
they're in there, and there's a whole Brownian theory, which has to do with the fact that these bubbles are they're sitting there and bouncing around. They are not going to the top of the water and breaking and releasing, right? So because they're just moving around and lasting months, they can be inside of the pipes. They can be actually scrubbing surfaces of pipes, and they're actively working within the water, but you can't see them. And I know that's something that everyone in our industry knows about, the micro bubble, but this is nano bubble. So it's a really different experience, size,
Okay.
and action that this bubble is taking.
No, I'm glad you brought that up about the micro bubbles because that was the other thing I was going to ask. So does the water look like milky or cloudy or any of that? But it doesn't because they are that small.
Right.
That's so hard to envision. Like that's
It
what like I
is.
can imagine
It
your
is.
human brain cannot comprehend things that are so small you can't see them.
Yes. We went into this very skeptical, I will say. Like we did really have to prove this to ourselves before we could really prove it to our business. And now we have to prove it to the industry and to our consumers. And
Yeah.
that's why the field work was so important, to really get to see people's reactions. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I feel like in our industry in particular, there have been products that have come and gone, whether they're a chemical product or a system where people claim it's set it and forget it, like you don't need any chlorine, and then it ends up not working or not being necessarily true or working as advertised. And so yeah, I think people in our industry are fairly skeptical of those sort of claims. And but it sounds like you started from that place too, where you're like, this can't be true, or this work in hot tubs because of all of the specific things that make keeping hot tub water clean. Yeah, the heat and the bodies and the length of time the water stays in the hot tub, all of those things. Like it's not easy. And so yeah, but it sounds like you came in with all of that same skepticism that the rest of us usually have when it comes to new water products for the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it was important for us to also not only look outside the industry to find technologies, but look outside the industry to validate the technologies. As we did a couple things, because it's, if you can't see it, then is it real, kind of thing? And how do we really know that it's performing consistently in our product? We actually were able to partner with a university in Maine, the University of Maine. They actually had a grant that they received from NASA to actually figure out how to get nanobubbles into space because of the cleaning properties of nanobubbles. bubbles. The NASA agency figured, hey, if we could clean the plumbing in the space station more effectively with less water, fewer chemicals, like that could make those things last longer. And so they actually received over $1 million grant from NASA, and they've been working on a project to prove that they can use the technology in space. So we're able to actually partner with one of the leading researchers in academia on nanobubbles, who is at the University of Maine, and run experiments with them with our application. They have a few more challenges for NASA. They have to first get them into space versus us. We just have to, stay here on Earth. But that was actually a pretty important part of our validation process as well, is showing, yeah, really, are they trillions? Because that sounds like a lot. Like, how do you prove that? And they're one of the few places in the country that has the equipment to measure and view something that size, as well as other properties Erica mentioned. Because of the size, these bubbles can also get behind some of the buildup that happens on hot tub plumbing and hot tub acrylic without any specialty chemicals. And by getting behind them, they could release them from the walls of the plumbing so that the treatment can happen to that as well. So we were able to also work with them to show that the nanobubble water actually cleans up almost 3 times more effectively acrylic and PVC surfaces than regular water. And so, some of that validation of, okay, how many are really in there? How long do they stay in there? How well do they really clean? We were able to work with them and actually be on their campus in their facilities with their team of researchers to prove that. So it was exciting to see what we thought was going to happen. Actually, for somebody who doesn't know anything about hot tubs, but knows a lot about nanobubbles, that yes, this is another application that they actually can really be useful for the end user.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about the plumbing, because that was something that I was thinking about with traditional water care. Obviously, like, you do get that buildup in the plumbing, and eventually, even if you're caring for your water properly, it's just using more and more chlorine because it's getting sucked up by what's in the plumbing, and it can't penetrate it, and you just start to have these recurring problems with your water over and over again. And sometimes even you'll drain and refill, and if you don't purge it properly, you're still going to have those issues, even with like fresh, what you think is fresh water. So yeah, that's really interesting that it can help with that problem as well, because they're so tiny that they can actually get in there. That's fascinating.
It's a special microscope that can see it, and we don't have one on staff. And that's why, luckily, we have access with the university for that proof. Yeah.
Okay. So what does this look like? Let's say a consumer gets a brand new hot tub with True Water on it. They put it in their backyard. They start filling it up. How do these nano bubbles get in there? How do they know that it's working? Do they need to, are they just always there? What does the actual process look like of it getting into their water, and then they are making sure that it's cared for?
It's actually really simple because the product it's immediately starts generating, right? As soon as you filled up your water and turn on the tub, this is going to be active. So there's really nothing you need to do, which is part of what our goals were, right? Make this the simplest water you could have, make the experience amazing. And we have only one action you have to take every couple months, and that is, you have the little silica gel that is drying as a dryer. So you have to remove that and switch it out. So it's like a little cylinder that you switch out every 3 months. Other than that, there's nothing really for a startup. It's part of your order. When you purchase the product, it's in there and it's going to be running.
So it sounds like about the time that you would be probably changing your water anyway, you change out the cylinder and you're ready to go then?
You can keep your water for a lot longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah, the water, what, Larry, a year, if not more, is really what we've been seeing with the water. Yeah.
That's pretty unheard of for a hot tub.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Larry has put together, and that was something that was really important, I think, for our teams, was to understand a standard management of a hot tub, just with chlorine or bromine, like we talked about, versus our system. And you've got it down as the amount of touch points minimized, right? I can't remember how many.
Yeah, when you talk about a salt system or something, there's a lot of steps involved in the startup. And a bag of 9 pounds of salt you got to put in there and wait 72 hours and make sure your water is in have a high calcium hardness and a bunch of different things you have to consider. So there's a lot of steps. So that's what we did. We just went through and looked at what the user manual says for all these different systems and how many steps someone has to, conduct to be able to get the system running to where it's supposed to be, and then what they have to do daily, weekly, monthly, and just compare ours versus theirs. And that's where kind of that we get rid of the daily and the weekly maintenance. Really, you still have to balance your water, make sure your pH and alkalinity is good at startup, but that's pretty typical. But beyond that, we pair this system with the low dose at ease system, which is a pretty low chlorine residual that's hands free as well. That comes in a monthly cartridge replacement, which is also a proprietary consumable for us. And so very few steps that you need to take. And that sounds, again, it's really clean the whole time. You told me that these things are in there that are called nanobubbles, but how do you know it's really clean water? So that was important for us too, with that kind of third party validation, is we did go to outside labs that were able to handle the bacteria and virus that come in the hot tubs. And we were able to dose things. We wanted to throw everything we could at it to see really how clean it could be. So things like Legionella and various bacteria and virus that we were able to culture and inoculate into the tub. And it sounds gross, but for us, it's important to make sure that we say, okay, we put this many millions of these organisms in the water, and then over a period of time, measure the reduction. Yeah, so we're able to make some pretty good claims around treatment. So the 99.9% treatment of bacteria and virus, some of this we've done it as little as 15 minutes. Some of them takes up to an hour, but we're able to, with a lab that specializes in CDC protocols, EPA protocols, and can handle this kind of stuff, run these trials so that we can quantifiably say that your water is safe by just turning your hot tub on and taking these few steps that we suggest. It also is clean down to that microscopic level.
I think it's so interesting that you can keep your water for a year, and the conservation part of that, I think, is pretty interesting because hot tubs, like in the grand scheme of things, hot tubs don't use a ton of water, right? It's not a huge deal to drain and refill them when you need to. But that being said, as we're seeing droughts across the country be more intense and last longer, and you guys being in California know that they don't mess around. And when they say you cannot refill things, they mean it. And I think if hot tubs, have they already said that about hot tubs at one point, or has that not happened yet? I know they've done that with pools. The pool side of the industry, that happens, it's a pretty big deal. I'm not sure if it's trickled to hot tubs yet, but it's within the realm of possibility that it will.
Yeah, I don't think it's made it to us yet, but pool, if you see, why is all that water coming out of that person's house for the last 2 hours? It's because you see people, policing sprinklers and things like that in California, and you can only
Yeah.
use it on this and that day of the week if you're on this side of the road and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's definitely topical.
Yeah, even in Oklahoma, we've had water restrictions before as far as watering your lawns and things like that. And I think the expectation is that's not going to get any better. I think we in the industry, we either are about to run or just ran, and I can't remember because they all run together, an article about the cost of actually refilling your tub. And I think in the consumer's mind, that's also, it's a lot more water and a lot bigger deal than it probably is. But so I think that's a great thing too for them to be like, I don't have to drain my tub and refill it because it feels like a big deal. It feels like a lot of water. It feels a waste. And so it's nice that I think it's nice for them to be able to not have those guilty feelings. So what does a 3-year development process look like? That's intense. And you've talked about it a little bit, like as far as exploring things on the outside and partnering with the University of Maine, but what all goes into that process for you guys? Because that sounds a little intense, 3 years.
Especially because this was a technology, as Larry said, that is new outside of our industry. And then the scale of it is massive. So it is being used as a technology, but in such a huge scale. To actually be able to take it and bring it down to our size, there was so much development and proof of concept that was needed. And learnings, develop components that don't exist today, and finding suppliers that would be partners.
Mhm.
And the amount of challenges, the amount of calls to different companies to try and get them to partner with you when you And then they want to ask you about numbers before they start a project. And you're kind of like, well, we hope that in 2 years we can sell this many pieces. So you're having these really interesting conversations, companies that actually want to be your partner, and trying then to prove to them and get them excited about this opportunity. So it's a lot of that development means you need to find new partners that are willing to invest with you, that is really breakthrough, but also risky, right? Of course. So I think that takes a while. We had to get different regions within different weather, different environments, different types of water. So getting people that had well water at their house, getting people that are in a really humid environment or
Yeah.
really dry environment. So getting those tests in backyards. So you go through different phases to get where you can actually go to, like Larry said, an EPA registered lab and say, okay, we feel good about this. We're ready for that next big step. And then to work with University of Maine and do those kind of procedures there. It's definitely a long process. And then partway along, as we started finding out that we were one of 8 companies that actually are working on a nanotechnology product. And so there's actually a little collaborative group, and they're in all different categories. The fact that NASA was part of that was just, but of course you can only take so much water with you to the space station, right? You can only take so much water in a shuttle. So every drop must count for them. So of course, water for them is just absolutely crucial. Like we're
Yeah.
talking about your own backyard, right? But in that case, it's even more crucial. And we knew we were on the right path, I
Yeah.
think, with this technology. And we knew, I think it was going to be a long one, but it was worth it. Definitely some challenges, but Larry's had a couple different versions in his backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of that. We had sites all over the US and also a lot in Southern California where we could go visit every
Yeah.
2 weeks, sample the water, check out the equipment, see what's going on, swap things out that weren't working, figure out why they stopped working, put a new one in, really stay close to the product and application, but also in our labs and things like that. In parallel with doing these testing was something that just took time in the real world because so much changes, right? From when you do it in your little lab to then what did they do in their backyard with their hot tub? And we didn't account for that, or the temperature swings that happen, or whatever it may be. Developing the suppliers along with us, not only the people who are experts in the core technology of the nanobubbles, but then also the other peripheral devices. What was important in figuring out how do we adjust the flow? Was that flow, this flow right? Kind of the treatment that we're injecting, was that the right amount or not? How does it affect the components out in our hot tub on a long-term basis? So there's a bunch of different questions that we wanted to make sure we answered before we got too far ahead of ourselves. In addition to also the user interface, okay, how hard is it to make it work? Do I need to know another hot tub? Okay, how much do I need to run my filtration per day? And if something isn't working, how is it alerting me? All those type of also user experience aspects of it were part of that process as well. So we were able to integrate it also with our technology around what we call Smart Tub, which is the ability to remotely monitor and control your hot tub from a mobile application and figure out like how do we put a fault detection system that can talk to a customer remotely if something's going on. How is the actual kind of menu selection that the customer has around which mode they want based on kind of their lifestyle. So we try to make that real simple. We have 3 settings: light, medium, and heavy, and that's all you need to know. We remind the customer when they need to replace that, filter cartridge, all that kind of stuff. A lot of different steps related to experience, reliability, performance. It just takes time. We don't have 25 people working on this thing. So it's like, there's also a little bit of just making sure that we're most efficient with our resources to answer all of the big questions, but then also some of those kind of smaller questions that are important because they don't always pop up, are important to make sure we're delivering that full experience that we're promising.
So people have been using True Water all over the country. So what has the feedback that you've been getting from your dealers and users who have experienced this, other than that the water's sparkly?
Yeah, I think it's all around that because
Yeah.
we don't want people to know all of the stuff or the technology going on behind the scenes. It's wow, the water feels different. Wow, that was really easy. I didn't have to do much. I think of a story of one of our national sales manager. She lives in the Midwest and she's on well water. And she got the product and got our biggest hot tub and filled her hot tub up with her source water. And she was like, man, that water looks really gross coming into my hot tub because all the iron and kind of
Ah,
metals and stuff that
yeah.
are in there. She's like, this system doesn't have a chance. And then the next day she came out and she was surprised that her water was so clear. Obviously, she loaded up her filters and all that stuff, so she needed to change it out. So some of that also has been some of the feedback is, man, my filter seems to be working better, catching more stuff in my water because we are purging a lot of the stuff from the system and making sure that we're getting it out of the water so that the water stays clean when you get into it. So a lot of just, hey, this is easy. Hey, the water's really nice. Couldn't believe it was going to work kind of thing. It's been good.
Yeah, easy. That's the key right there. Just easy because we've all been at those people's houses, those friends' houses, and they open up their hot tub and you're like, uh-oh, this doesn't smell good. This doesn't look good. Are we really going to get in there? I feel like even the most fastidious hot tub owner, things can get out of control really fast. You go on vacation, you are sick for a couple days, you don't take care of it, and next thing you know, you're like working to fix
Yeah.
lots of problems. Is there anything else? So again, this is my first time learning about this, so you know a lot more about it than I do, but is there anything else that's important about the True Water system that we haven't touched on? What do I not know to ask?
Yeah, I think we don't want to overcomplicate the message, right? We want to, I
Sure.
think, make sure that obvious that the technology we selected is unique. It works at applications outside of our industry. We're able to really customize it to our industry. We did this, Erica and I, probably 12 years ago when we first launched UV into the market. We were the first brand to have it, and it was the same idea. It's what is being used in whether it might be beverage bottling or medical device sanitation. And UV became interesting. And then it was like, oh, they're using it in pools. Like, could we use it in hot tubs kind of thing? And we were able to then also design it to our application. So it's effective, it's proven. And we're the only ones to have it in our industry. So it's one more reason why our Jacuzzi brand, I think, stays at the forefront of innovation. Is because we constantly are looking at the product life cycles of this technology and what works well in other applications. How do we bring it to ours and invest the resources into it? So I think those are the main ideas. Like, wow, this is new, this is proven, it's effective, and it's a game changer, I think, for our brands and for our industry. And we're going to continue to come out with new things for our product to make sure that it's clearly set apart from other options out there for hot tubs. So I think that's the main message I think we wanted to share with this forum is that we're continually evolving our product and making the best in class features for our product that are in the areas that are most meaningful for customer experience. And we've done it again, I think is the big thing to make sure that we want to communicate. And I think we have a long road ahead of us to let this technology be used in the industry. And we're starting it on certain products in our overall selection, and we'll continue to evolve our selection to include it on more products. And we're excited to see it go into more markets than just the US, but we're also doing it in a way that we want to make sure that we're not going too fast for ourselves. So yeah, I think those are the main messages. It's cool, it's easy, it's really effective, and it's only from our brands.
That reminded me to ask you though. So is it really expensive? That's the only other thing I haven't asked you yet. Is it pretty spendy to put on a hot tub or not awful?
If you look at what else is out there for water care systems and add-ons, we've taken
Okay.
similar approaches where on certain levels of products, it's just the standard feature that you get. So if you buy a Jacuzzi product at a certain level, then this is the system it's equipped with. And if you buy a lower level of product, then it might be an option that you want to upgrade to. But I think
Okay.
to your comment earlier on in the interview, it's spend your money on the right things when you buy your hot tub because you're going to have it for a long time. And I think you used the example of a waterfall or some of these other kind of features that might be fun to play with for the first few weeks, but then I don't really use that. But your water is pretty important to your hot tub experience. We wanted to make sure we priced it in line with other options if it's sold that way in the market or as one more way to differentiate a premium level of product versus others out there.
It's pretty exciting. It's not very often that the hot tub industry is at the forefront of a technology. Usually we're catching up. I feel like that alone makes us exciting, but yeah, it's the holy grail, it sounds like, of what people have been looking for as far as maintaining their hot tub. And anytime you can take that big, I don't want to say problem, but that kind of barrier to entry out of the way and take that out of the conversation, that's a huge deal. So thank you guys so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see this out in the field and start hearing from more dealers what they think about it too.
Spa Retailer Podcast is a production of Spa Retailer Magazine. Let us know what you think by leaving a review or emailing us at podcast@sparetailer.com. Thanks for listening.